Hey everybody, welcome back. It is another episode of Inside Boxing Live presented by ppv.com. It is Dan Kinobio. It is world champion Chris Algieri and it is presented by ppv.com. Like I just said, the premier and only way to order live pay-per-view events, whether it's primetime boxing, whether it's AEW, wrestling, and so much more. No subscriptions. Just pop your email in. We're not going to ask you to pay up front. You could pay fight by fight, event by event, stream it to your phone, tablet, any device, and you can chat with us. Live on Fight Night is becoming the place to be on Fight Night to chat with me, Chris, Jim Lampley, Lance Pugmire. You never know who's going to pop into the chat. Your favorite fighter might pop into the chat. So please use ppv.com moving forward for all your pay-per-view needs. They send us to these big fights. They allow us to do 2 shows a week. They allow us to do some pretty cool things. We have some really awesome stuff planned for the rest of the year and then into next year. Because boxing never stops, Chris. Never stops.
Never sleeps.
When will it ever stop?
Neither do we. Apparently, people are like, "Oh man, you worked all night. Now you're like doing a pot. Like, how do you do it all?" I'm like, boxing never sleeps, baby. So, I'm probably gonna die young with doing this. It's good.
Oh, God. It helps to have a passion for it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you love it?
I do. Of course I do.
Do you breathe it? Do you eat it?
Do you sleep it? I have for a long time, so it's now I get to do it in a different way. I even hang out at the gyms now. I'm like the old head at the gym.
The gym rat with a coffee?
I just left the gym. I didn't even work out. Like I brought my gear to work out and then just ended up talking to everybody for a while. Well, I had a meeting. I had an important meeting, and the meeting ran long. But it was, I was talking to this very talented young fighter who's coming up and needs.
How's the
guidance.
gyms over there? What's the scene like?
Florida gyms are awesome. They're packed and they're hot, really hot. And every once in a while you get Clyde Boy, right, buddy?
That's right. Clyde is making an appearance. Chris's dog.
There he goes. No, gyms down here are great. Good sparring. I'm actually going to watch some sparring tomorrow. So no sparring for me though. I'm gonna be the guy with the coffee, like you said.
When's the last time you sparred? Do you have the urge and the desire to?
Yeah, I have the desire to fight still. It's not a good idea. Just don't have enough time to train. Last time I sparred, it's probably coming up on 2 years.
Wow.
18 months, 2 years, something like that.
Because that's not even like sparring, but people think, it's essentially like practice. But like, even something as sparring is serious. Yeah, like I thought you were going to say 2 weeks ago. I thought you were going to say like 2 years. No. I mean, that's sparring. You got to build up to that.
Yeah, people ask me, they're like, "Oh, I want you to spar with my guy." I'm like, "Dude, I don't spar." Like, what are you talking about? Oh, you don't spar anymore? I'm like, no. I speak for a living. I need my brain cells.
So the last time you got in the ring, you threw a punch was one of our breakdowns when you grazed my nose.
Yeah. Well, the last time I sparred was when I boxed with what's his name?
Jake Storiale from John Boy Media.
Jake Storiale. That was my last sparring session.
He almost choked and died, and then you hit him with a body shot that you swore you weren't going to do, or hit him upstairs and you did. I just saw him last weekend. He still talks about that. He's like, I went around with Algieri.
That was so fun. But he's wearing the body shield, so of course I was going to hit him. If he didn't wear the body, actually, I was still going to drop one a body shot. But
that was awesome. We got to go back and like repost that or something to find some clips from that and repost that. Or find someone else to beat up. Maybe Mitch. We can box him. Our super producer Mitch. A lot to get to today. There's a lot of things going on in the boxing world as usual. Fights being announced. Fights happening this weekend at Madison Square Garden and abroad. Dana White teasing once again for the millionth time. Did you see Beterbiev-Bivol had their kickoff press conference?
Yep.
And I'm going to be honest. Like, I feel like there's not enough hype around this fight. It's 3 weeks away, and it's not enough hype.
It's snuck up. I think it's gonna catch steam now because like we've seen them together. They came out with that badass promo, which
awesome.
That's a whole nother discussion about these ridiculously long movie promos that are selling zero pay-per-views.
How much do you think those things cost too?
Oh, that's another thing. Dude, their ROI on those are nothing. You're just spending money. You're spending money to have boxers pretend to be actors for a day. But regardless, it was very, very cool. And I think boxing heads are going to get more excited again. And I was saying this yesterday on a different show that I was like, this is one of those fights that neither one of these guys are going to talk you into buying the pay-per-view. But boxing people, boxing heads are going to tell you to watch this fight. If you know a guy who's into boxing, he's going to be like, yo, what are you doing for this fight? You need to watch this fight. This is the fight. Because I think boxing people are understand the magnitude of this matchup and how good this fight really can be. So I think that's how it's going to gain steam. And it's going to be a late charge, I think. I think it'll get more talked about in the next 3 weeks.
The reason it's not being discussed, I don't think, the reason it's not as much hype around this fight, because it's the best fight you could possibly make in boxing, hands down. I think everyone is in agreement with that. But the reason why it's not getting a lot of traction is because, like you said, like it's two Eastern European guys. They're not, trash talkers. Bivol has been so inactive and hasn't fought the best. Beterbiev has been even more inactive and just injured all the time. And you talk about how they're not going to talk. And there was a press conference yesterday. The biggest news to come out of this press conference yesterday was Chris Eubank Jr. going scorched earth on Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren with them seated right behind them, called them scumbags, brought up specific details of their scumbag activity. Eddie Hearn, he brought up a point where you wanted me to fight Conor Benn when you knew he was on steroids. You had me in these horrible deals. Frank Warren, you sued me. You held me up, this, that, and the other. Callie Sutherland, who now works with Misfits Boxing. You had me in a horrible deal. And it made the rounds and it went viral. And obviously they had to play kiss and make up. They put out statements, dueling statements that, we're all fine now. But no.
That's because the libel suits came in, and the cease and desist letters came from 3 different organizations to Chris Eubank. And I say this all the time. First of all, I tip my hat to Chris Eubank for doing that and speaking to what we all know is true, that promoters, right? This boxing game is very dirty. Those contracts suck. The promotional contracts suck. I went through this. I did court battles. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting for my case, which at the end of the day is stupid because you're a fighter and you only have a few years to make money. Promoters are companies. They have decades to make money, and the fighter has to pay for themselves for their own defense. So I understand why he retracted the statement. Because again, he got, I'm telling you right now, I know how these promoters work. He got 3 cease and desist letters from 3 different companies. He was going to have to fight each and every one of them out of his own pocket. Oh yeah. Not the hill to die on. So
Frank Warren said right afterwards, Chris, I'm suing him. He's going to be hearing from me.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly why that retraction came so fast and why they had the quote unquote kiss and make up, because that's what promoters do. If you say something that actually happened, they just throw a libel suit at you because they know you're going to have to pay for it, and you don't want to do that. They have better lawyers, and they have a deeper bag of money. So, but I tip my hat to Eubank. I know some people were saying oh man, he turned right around on his words. I'm like, yeah, because he's not going to spend his money fighting this useless fight. He said it. He said it. We all know it. We all know it's true. He's got receipts for all that shit too. So it's not like it came out of nowhere.
He didn't say anything that we didn't already know. Obviously, boxing promoters are some shady characters. The funniest part about it, in my opinion, was him thinking that there's some better than others. Like Ben Shalom, he doesn't do some of the same tactics that these other promoters do, or he won't eventually do those because he's new to the game. Or he was praising Turkey at the end. He's like, the only person who does it the right way, the only person who is this man of God, religion, blah, 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 is Turkey al-Sheikh. And then you could see Warren and Hearn just shut up then. They weren't about to dispute or say anything bad about Turkey. I thought that was interesting. I thought that was kind of funny from Eubank, who, you could kind of poke holes at Eubank too. This is a guy that he turned down a lot of money to fight Canelo, or if it was real or not, turned down a lot of money to fight Shiraz, and now is fighting on this card way down on the list. Not making anywhere near that type of money, and I don't even know the guy he's fighting. He's going to be a huge favorite. I don't know. I feel like Eubank's career has been just very oddly moved.
You talk about this last fight for turning down the Canelo money?
Whatever, he did an interview with Shalom next to him, was like, I turned it down. I turned down Canelo. It was short money and it will be even bigger in a year.
I don't know how true that actually is, but okay. Interesting.
That's what they're saying. I know that I know that you said that he wasn't even offered it at all, but there's a narrative out there that he's turning down fights. He turned down the Shiraz fight. That's 100% true, and didn't like the money and things. Said that fight will be there next year I'm looking for names. I'm Chris Eubank. Like, what exactly is it? He never won a title. 34 years old. Definitely a name. I like him. Like I every time he does interviews, I enjoy them, and I like what he did with the Ben situation. I thought he came out looking great on that.
Yep.
But like, you want to sit up there and talk about all these promoters and all that stuff. Like, you don't exactly have like the model career for a guy that's 34. You haven't really made like the top dollar yet.
He didn't fight Ben and he beat Ben. he came out of that one on top. But yeah, no, I agree.
Public opinion.
He's got a good mouthpiece, and he's good at that. And yesterday was another example of that. But
learned from his dad.
Yeah, it was dad fought everybody too, though. And
his dad was taking pictures with Conor Benn with the ops. The whole British thing is
with the ops. Yeah,
it's just. You know what? Another thing too. I think Ariel Helwani pointed this out, and something that I was thinking as well. It's like a lot of these Turkey's bringing all these promoters together, right? He's bringing Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, Ben Shalom. They're all in the same room now, so they all have to play nice. That's why we're getting so many of these moments where occasionally, like it comes out. Occasionally, the knives come out, and they go back to their old ways. And Eddie Hearn last week was on stage with Ben Shalom, and he was talking about like I can drop you right here. I'm gonna kick your ass. I'm like, what? What are we doing?
What are we doing,
Eddie? You're not beating anybody up. Eddie, you're not touching anyone. Like Ben Shalom's like, yeah, bro. Like this old man threatened to fight me because I think he's threatened. It's just like hilarious to see that they're quote unquote all playing nice, right? They're all playing. They're making the fights, doing the 5-on-5s. All the promoters are working together. They all hate each other. They're all jealous. It's a big time money grab and a big time rush to the money.
It's all competition. They're all trying to grab the same bag, and it's Turkey's bag. That's why they're all praising him all the time. But they also have fighters that are going to be directly competing. That's why I love Bob and Top Rank. It's so businesslike. But you're not going to see Bob. I mean, Bob will bark here and there, but he's not losing sleep over this stuff.
Well, they run on a whole different operation. Top Rank. They're like
they're a business.
Yeah, they're way on the they're not really overseas for the most part. They're mostly domestic, which gets us into our next point and kind of the main topic of our episode this week. Dana White says that he is going guns a-blazing into boxing in 2025. Raise your hand if you've heard this before. I'm raising my hand. Chris, are you raising your hand? Yes, Chris is raising his hand. Yes, we have heard this from Dana White numerous times, most notably 2017 when Conor McGregor fought Floyd Mayweather. He came out with the Zuffa boxing shirt. He's constantly said, I can get into boxing whenever I want, but you know what? I don't want to, because whenever I try, I see how messed up it is, and I see how these promoters are just idiots, blah, 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 blah. Dana White saying what he wants. But now, Chris, he says he's getting into the sport. He says 2025, he has a big plan. I don't know. Do you want me to lay out the plan for you? And just first off, your thoughts on Dana White potentially entering boxing. Are you a Dana White fan? Are you a Dana White? Do you like his tactics? Where do you stand?
I like the success. Performance matters, right? I like what he's been able to do, obviously, with the UFC as a corporation. I like the fact that he's a boxing fan. He definitely knows our sport and pays attention. I don't like the underpaying fighters thing, though, because that's a real issue. And you're not going to be able to do that in boxing. And so if he does come over here, his bills are going to be a lot higher. But that's if he comes over here, which I don't think he will. And when he talks about these promoters, the reason everything is so backward is because of the disjointed system itself. All these guys are competing with each other. That's what we were just talking about. Dana's not used to that. Dana's not used to having to have to compete. UFC was the tip of the iceberg, and basically was off of a reality TV show. That's what got it so popular. So if you really, really think about it, when it comes to head-to-head competition, Dana's not used to that. And if he comes into boxing, it's going to be head-to-head, and you're fighting at all sides. It's like that. It's the Spider-Man meme where they're all pointing at each other. Those are the promoters all fighting each other at all times. So it's not a fair fight.
Well, yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said there. But I think in 2017, it wasn't like it is now. 2017, PBC was a lot more powerful. Bob Arum was a lot younger. He was in his 80s, believe it or not in his 90s. And he
Still
wasn't
in his 80s is crazy.
right.
Now he's
young man.
I just had a tequila with him the other day. The guy is he's still going.
In 2017, Bob Arum was a young man, damn it. And the sport was different.
Young 88-year-old man.
Spry.
Spry.
Point being, in 2017, the landscape was different. When Dana White took a look in there, opened up the box and was like, "Ooh, what's going on here?" Like Eddie Hearn, like your Matchroom isn't as big as it was. Matchroom USA, you're just going to now start something here in the States. Frank Warren, you've never had success in the States. You've had success overseas. PBC, yeah, okay, you guys are doing it well with Showtime, and I hate Steven Espinoza, so I'm not going to be working with him, so I don't see myself doing it there. And Oscar, he just can't stand Oscar. And Oscar in 2017, I'm pretty sure he wasn't even in the sport. Is that when he left for a little bit and Richard Schaefer came in? I could be wrong with that timeline. Point being, he was not looking at boxing in 2017 and as a way to enter it. 2024, 2025, it's way different now. The promoters are now closer together and now working together under one umbrella, de facto league, de facto boss man in Turkey. So if Dana White, according to some of these rumors that I'm hearing, Dana White is going to team up with Turkey Al-Sheikh, and Dana White and UFC Fight Pass is going to be the platform. Turkey Al-Sheikh is going to be the money guy. The promoters are all going to work together as some type of league. So Eddie Hearn is going to continue to work along with Frank Warren and some of these other promoters, but it's going to air on UFC Fight Pass because Dana White keeps on saying, "I'm going to be HBO. I'm HBO," which means, what does that mean? HBO is a platform. So if he says, "I'm HBO, my plans for 2025 is I'm going to be the HBO," that means that UFC Fight Pass is the HBO. Like, that's the platform. They have the platform, and they also have TKO, which is the Endeavor group that recently bought the UFC and owns WWE. So it's in place right there on the business side. So that's the plan starting to formulate, Chris. Does it look a little clearer to you? Do you actually believe it this time? He says, "I'm coming." Like, I'm 100% in. And he goes, "Whenever I say I'm going to do something, I go and do it." So I don't doubt that he's going to try. I just don't know if this is going to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he's a smart guy. He's not going to try anything that, he doesn't think can work. But I'm for it. I mean, listen, I like more promoters, more opportunities, more dates. That's all good for boxing. Queensberry is talking about coming over to here as well. So I don't know if you heard about that, Dan. I'm sure you have. But
why wouldn't they? I mean,
it seems like the time is now because a lot of things are changing. The ESPN top ranked deal is we're not really sure where that's going to end up.
Another thing.
There's a lot of moving parts going on right now, and I think there's opportunity for other places to step into the sport. Look, Turkey just did. Turkey just came out of nowhere, stepped into the sport, and changed the whole game. So now they're seeing this opportunity where there's a ton of money and there's opportunity. And I think Dana also watched what happened when he went head-to-head with Canelo a couple weeks ago. Does the Sphere. Word on the street is he lost a gang of money, right? And then you got Canelo. Canelo sells out. Canelo makes a ton of money. That promotion made money. That show made money. Fight was good. So he went head to head with boxing. He's like, man, I want a taste. I want a taste of that. So yeah, maybe he gets it done. Maybe he makes it work. But if there's more opportunities and more dates for fighters, yeah, he is a boxing guy. But as long as he pays, he cannot bring the kind of checkbook he has at UFC over to
that's the thing,
boxing.
Chris. Is he going to play, like, you say more promoters the better? Like, that's not that Dana White doesn't want more promoters the better. He just wants less promoters. That's how he has been able to build the UFC into the behemoth that it is today.
You think he's going to come in and kick these guys out of the sport that they've been doing for 50 years?
I know. I just don't see how it all works. There's so many egos, and they need a platform. So Turkey right now has all the fights air on DAZN. He tweets about DAZN all the time. He's, from what I see, is that he likes the partnership between putting the fights on DAZN. But what he's doing, right, essentially, is leveraging two platforms against each other, which is something that Al Heyman did for years with all the other networks when PBC started, is that he is now, all right, I got DAZN, who all the fights air on right now. DAZN seems happy with the deal. We have a platform to put these fights on. All right, Dana White is lurking, and he's got Fight Pass. So I can leverage the two of them in negotiations. I can bring these fighters over to Fight Pass and put the fights over there, and they can be the new premier platform because they're getting into boxing. They've been working with Callum Walsh. It's an experiment. and it seems like it's doing well. I watched his last fight. The production was top notch. It was looked just like a UFC fight. But going back to the main question is like, can Dana White work with other promoters? I don't see that. Like he wants to be the boss. Like I don't see him like working with other promoters. I don't see him playing that game. Like I don't see him entering the sport of boxing as being just a bit player. He's coming in to take over. Like that's all he knows. Like you don't go backwards. Like you don't go into boxing just to be like, oh, I'm just another promoter.
Just one of the guys, yeah.
In a sea of 5 or 6 of them.
That's what I said right in the beginning. You know, when I said the Spider-Man meme. You're going to come in, you're going to fight everybody at the same time, and you're going to think you're going to win. This is boxing, man. Again, you're not going to knock these guys out who've been in this game for 50 years. You know, these guys wrote the book on this stuff. You got Frank Warren coming in. He's basically the Bob Arum of the UK. Now he's coming over here. The guy knows how to do business. This guy knows how to work in this sport. And this sport's funny, man. This is not the UFC. This is not MMA. It's a very nuanced sport. The business is very difficult. And it's a lot of, I know we say these guys are fighting each other and these guys hate each other and now they're playing nice. They always play. They always work together. They're always in discussion behind the closed doors. That's always part of the sport. Dana is going to have to learn some different tricks. You're not coming in and taking over boxing, bro. You can, I know you want to, but good luck.
The plan, I think the master plan, if everything can go right for them, is Turkey works on making that league, right? The league that was being proposed or talked about. And he gets all the promoters together. Hearn, Warren, Boxer, maybe even Top Rank, because like you talked about, Chris, their deal is up at the end of 2025. Maybe they can be enticed to get under it. Who knows? Maybe PBC can get involved. Even if one of those promotions doesn't, you get the lion's share of the promotion and the lion's share of the talent. And Turkey is the money guy there and brings them all, these promoters all together. And then Dana White comes in and is the HBO and is the platform.
Yeah,
then you have something.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Then you have something. Then you have a majority of the talent all working together. You have one platform, which is not the zone, which is UFC Fight Pass. And then you have these big fights being made. But then, Chris, the catch-22 to that is the pay. The reason why boxers like yourself made such good money was because you could negotiate and you could take a bigger chunk of the revenue. In the UFC, they're taking 80%, sometimes even more. That's the standard procedure in the UFC. In boxing, it's the other way around. Like, Canelo Alvarez is taking your Coca-Cola at fight night. They're making so much more. They're taking way more. The revenue splits are completely different. And as I say this, the UFC is in an antitrust lawsuit right now with a bunch of fighters and the UFC, and there's a bunch of fighters who are claiming UFC is a monopoly, and the UFC is just saying, we will pay you $375 million. They've reached an agreement in their antitrust case. So basically just admitting fault, and the judge originally said no to 335, which UFC put out. So UFC just upped it $40 million to $375 million. And the judge has to sign off on that. And that money will go to all these fighters who felt like they were either frozen out, forced into bad contracts. Like why the UFC is what it is today. Like the timing of it is hilarious because you can do it in boxing. I just don't see it happening so quick.
Well, that was my point. You can't bring that same checkbook you're used to using at UFC with boxing. It's just not gonna happen. But in terms of what you were saying with the network idea and being the platform and being the new HBO, then you're not fighting every promoter. Then you're only fighting the zone. Essentially, you're going head to head with one entity now. That makes sense if that's what Dana White wants to do. And if that's the case, it's not so much that if he becomes the HBO of of boxing now, he's going to have to host all those other promoters unless he does exclusive deals, which doesn't really make sense. That's how fights get made, and even though that's how it used to be back in the day. But you then you got something, and then it's not necessarily him paying the bill the way that we think of when it comes to UFC. So that's
right, yeah,
I think where there's something, because then if he goes head to head with the zone, I can see that fight. You're not going head to head with all the promoters and think you're going to come out on top like King of the Hill. But the network idea, that's something. And
This is
listen, we said from the top, Dana's not a dumb guy. If he's going to do this, he's going to do it right. And he's got a strategy for sure.
This is his strategy, and he sees that the sport is always going to be fragmented. It's definitely fragmented, but it's also like kind of together right now for the first time in years, where
as much as it can be, it's still a dog eat dog world. Yeah,
exactly. There's at least some structure in place right now where Hearn, Warren, and they're all working together. He sees maybe Top Rank being a little vulnerable at the moment, where they're at the end of a deal with ESPN. Bob Arum is up there in age. Where are they going moving forward? Well, they already have a partnership with Riyadh Season. So does Golden Boy. I haven't mentioned Golden Boy in all this because they're not the biggest in promotion of them all, but I'm sure they would fall right in line too. So there is a plan in place. Like I know that Dana wouldn't just jump in and try to do this and slowly but surely. But I've heard that he tried to sign Terrence Crawford 3 or 4 times. In the last year. Obviously, Crawford went with Turkey and fought Madrimov. That could be a thing too, but exactly like you're hitching your wagon to a 37-year-old fighter who doesn't exactly love doing media and isn't the most marketable fighter is interesting, but you have Dana White behind it. I'm intrigued, but I'm also like kind of skeptical because the one thing about getting all these promoters together in a quote unquote league, I like the idea of it. I like it for fans, but I'm worried about like the pay. And I know this is a very sensitive topic, and it's like a topic that's always discussed. It's like, do the fans at home, do you guys care that your fighter is getting top dollar, or do you care about the best fights being made on a continuous basis like the UFC does? I haven't been able to actually ask fans that. I would guess the majority of fans want to see the best fights being made. I don't think they care too much about how much fighters are getting paid.
I would agree. I would say that they want it. They care more about what's being delivered to them than what these guys are walking home with. But in every other sport, the pay is exorbitant, and the guys play and they entertain, and you tune in. But they
and you pay attention to their pay.
Yes, you do, and they talk about it. There's big discussions on their pay, and it's all well known. Fight sports are different, man. Our careers are really short. Our money making windows are tiny compared to some other sports. Not in football. Football is very small, very short. Yeah. But you got a baseball
football
player.
And boxing are pretty simple. I think the average football career is like 3.5 years.
Yeah, and the average money making window for a fighter and champion is around that, if not a little less. 2-3 years. Yeah, is probably about right. For really make money. And the problem is it comes on the tail end of guys' careers usually, except for like the superstars. But a lot of times your money making capacity is on the back end. And at that time, you're not the same fighter you used to be.
I don't know who's going to argue for the fighters in this proposed world.
The good thing is, like you said, the fighters can argue for it. They can. We have our own voices. Unionize. Yeah, not even unionized, but just we can fight. We fight. Like Chris Eubank, it's lip service, but we're not going to sit there and take it. Boxing.
But they could unionize. What's stopping boxing from having a union is that there's no what's the union attached to? Like the MLB players' union is attached to the MLB. It's one of the strongest unions in the world. Like they fight.
We need a national and global commission. And
I don't see Turkey and them installing that.
No,
I could see their counter argument would be the counter argument that UFC has is that hey, our lowest guy on the roster could make a living, where the lowest guy in the boxing makes $500. We're talking about the first fight of the night, or even first prelim fight makes a couple thousand. Where in the UFC or in this potential boxing league, they can make $50,000 a year. They can make $100,000 a year. It's that, but it kind of takes the fun out of boxing and letting these fights marinate, and just the whole business side of boxing will change if this all happens. And that's why I'm a little skeptical, because I will say this about Dana White. I'm not the biggest fan of him, but you're right, Chris. Like you said at the beginning of this, he's successful. Results speak. So when he says I'm entering boxing, and when he says I'm coming guns a-blazing, this is happening. This is 100% happening next year. Dana White will be involved with boxing. It's just how quick will this happen? How fast will these other promotions fold into that? How quick will it be to sign fighters who are already out there and are used to this business that you were used to? What would you do if you were in this situation? Like a league, would that entice you? Dana White entry boxing, would that entice you? Would being part of something like that sound like a good idea for you?
All of it would have when I was fighting, because it was just opportunities for me. Because listen, I wasn't a darling of any particular promotion. So for me, I was willing to fight anywhere, and I did. I was a road warrior. I fought on so many different promotions, so many different networks, so many different channels. So for me, anything new that came in, I was like, oh, I'll join that. And it usually they come in with a lot of money. I fought on PBC when it first came in because there was a bunch of money, and I made a lot of money on all the new promotions that came in because I jumped on every single one of them.
Triller.
PBC,
Triller
Matchroom,
checks,
Triller,
baby.
all came in very quickly with a bunch of money. I jumped on all of those shows early.
Hopefully you got paid from Triller because a lot of people didn't.
I got paid handsomely from Triller,
All
and
right,
I got
good.
paid from PBC, and I got paid from Matchroom, all very, very well because I jumped on it early when those guys came in with money. So for me, the more promoters, the better. Or I should say, for fighters like me, guys who are not married to, like Tank can only fight on PBC. He can't take advantage of anyone else coming in, Turkey included, because they're not working together with PBC. But a guy like me, who was not married to any particular promoter, was not a darling of any particular network, I had the opportunity to jump in and fight on every card, any possibility, any new gunslinger that came out, I was willing to step in with. So
that's why a lot of these guys will, over the top praise of Turkey, which sometimes can be like, oh my God, come on, man. Chris Eubank, you were doing so well in that speech.
Right. You were doing so well, buddy. Right at the end.
But like someone like it, like they see it. Like, I don't blame them. I really don't blame the fighters because it's such a short
Make that
career.
money, man. Make that money.
It's just, there's no pension. There's no union. There's no one looking out for you. Either your own promoters aren't looking out for you, if you believe what Eubank said. So it's like your manager maybe, and they're not always looking out for you. So who the hell is looking out for you? You. So
I got sued by a manager too. So nobody's looking out for you.
You got to write a book on the business of boxing.
Oh, I've thought about it. I think it'll be like my biography / the dark side of the business of boxing.
It's like the opposite of the cookbook, which is just the best book, and it's just so colorful and has such
and nice
joy.
And positive. This will be just
joy. Everyone I talk to in the boxing world, when I say, "Oh yeah, you doing that show with Chris?" Oh, Fighter's Kitchen, man. I still use it every day until he writes the deep down biography.
That's gonna be a whole different book. That one's not gonna be sitting on anyone's table for kitchen table or counter or anything like that.
The boxing world is crazy, and now we're gonna have Dana White enter it. Oh my goodness! I was just watching 30 for 30, Chuck and Tito. Never watched it. It was just happened to be on ESPN. I probably wouldn't have fired it up unless it was just on cable. You know me.
Awesome rivalry.
I like to flip through the channels, flip through. And it was an awesome rivalry, and it was an awesome way to learn about the UFC. Like, I knew a bunch about it. I knew that, like, they were in trouble, and Dana White and Lorenzo Fertitta, who was his high school friend, who owned a bunch of casinos in Las Vegas, bought it for $2 million. And even after they bought it for $2 million, it was still floundering until about 2006-ish, 2005, Ultimate Fighter, Forrest Griffin, Stephan Bonner. But Chuck and Tito were like the Hulk Hogan and like Randy Savage, like the Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. Because I'm also watching the Vince McMahon documentary right now too, so I'm all fight sported up right now. It was interesting. It made me look at Dana White a little different. But I'm skeptical because I always liked them separated. I always liked Dana, stay on your side with MMA and let us do our boxing thing. But now it's all just like anything. I don't have to get all philosophical here. Everyone's just coming together. All these companies are merging. Like, it's just like everything's just just one giant company, the world.
It becomes conglomerates, and it's like we're gonna have the Black Rock of boxing. We're gonna have the Black Rock of boxing soon. It's gonna be
what's his name gonna have to come in and break it all up? Bernie Sanders, is he gonna come in and say boxing is corrupt?
Oh, it's a monopoly.
We had what's his name do it for a while. John McCain. He was the only guy. Actually
he was trying, looking for the National Commission.
Good for him. God bless him. God bless. He tried.
Teddy Atlas brings up the National Commission a lot, and honestly, that's the kind of guy I would want to like be the president of that thing. I think he knows so much about the sport, and he's a no bullshit kind of guy.
I feel like he's kind of aligned with Dana White too, and Turkey and stuff. Like
he is.
I mean, Teddy like 20 years ago, yeah, but I feel like he's just just like anyone else, I see him at the fights and stuff. They're sending him and stuff, so I don't know how compromised he is. But like Dana, he was a guy that would be on a short list to be president of boxing, whatever that means.
Just the knowledge alone. I mean, it's hard to match.
Right. It is hard to match. And Teddy's seen some shit. I mean, this guy's seen everything.
He's seen
Remember
everything.
his rants on Friday Night Fights were like pretty much that's why he got fired from ESPN. Is like he was just doing too many of them. It was almost every single week. It was a new this judge needs to die. Like corruption. Like it was just
he's calmed down a lot in these recent years.
Like those rants were good like once a year. When you're doing it every single week on Friday Night Fights and you're looking over and like Bob Papa or like Todd Grisham or whoever was next to him was like, oh, here we go again. I got to like keep my straight face while Teddy spits all over the TV. Love Teddy Atlas. All right. That is what's going on the boxing business side. There's some fights this weekend over in Madison Square Garden, right in my backyard. I might go check them out, or I might just take a detox from boxing because sometimes you need a break.
Detox? What is this?
What?
Detox? Detox from boxing?
Going to rehab. I go in there. What first day?
Hello, listeners.
Dan.
Are you hearing this guy?
Boxing.
Detox from boxing. Do you want your favorite podcaster to take a detox from boxing?
No, I'm still going to watch.
Damn it, Dan.
I'm still going to watch. I was talking about going. Like I thought about going Friday night MSG. No,
that's like being like, guys, I'm doing a detox. I'm only drinking beer.
Yeah, only drinking light beer, guys.
I'm only doing
sober night.
I'm only a sober night. I'm only having beer today.
Only having light beer. No, the detox would be me not going to the actual fight, but watching still. Because that I'm a sicko. I'm not going to not watch Xander Zayas. I'm not going to not watch Bruce Shoo Carrtington.
Okay, good. You scared me there for a second, Dan. Jeez.
Michaela Mayer. Like, of course, I'm going to watch it. I don't know if I'm going to make the trek to the west side of Manhattan on a Friday night. Xander Zayas, we'll start there. He's fighting Damian Sosa. Xander Zayas, Chris, is ranked top 10 at 154. WBO has him third. 22 years old. I feel like we don't look at him as a budding contender yet. I still see him as a kid. Maybe it's the baby face. Maybe it's the fact he's 22. I don't know. I feel like he's not listed. He's not named with the other big guys at 154. But damn, he's really, really good, and he fights often.
So I think the reason that what you just said, like to piggyback that idea of like why we don't look at him like that, I think it's because the division is so deep. It's such a deep division. 54 it's just full of studs. And they're young. They're young studs. You got guys who are 26, 27, and what is Xander, 23?
22.
22. Oh,
unreal.
Yeah, so he's like really young. And I think that's why, where in any other division, I think you'd be looking at Xander like, all right, this guy's ready for a title shot. Listen, I've been speaking to the people at Top Rank. Xander wants all the smoke. He is all gas, no brakes. He wants the best guys in the division. He's asking why he is not fighting these guys. So, listen, he wants to be there. Trying to move him quick. But I think there's other ideas, because when you have a Puerto Rican like Xander, who's got the look, he's fun to watch. He's very well spoken. Every promoter is going to be looking for the next Puerto Rican star to host fights in New York, because it's always worked. That's always been a formula, right? You've got Cotto, you've got Trinidad. It always mattered to have a big Puerto Rican star to sell out the Garden, to do their Puerto Rican parade weekend fights. That matters. So I think they're not trying to move him too quickly because of that reason. You want to develop him into that 23, 24, 25, 26-year-old who is selling out the Garden once a year and winning multiple titles in different weight classes. So I know he's pushing. He wants to go, but I think the powers that be that are around him are being like, "Easy, kid. Let's collect let's set up the bag before we start sprinting."
Right, and I agree. I couldn't agree more. I just don't know how he's going to do that. He's balancing the act right now because he's ranked third by the WBO. Fundora is the champ. Crawford is the interim. And Zhu is ahead of him. Those are heavy hitters. Those are guys that are way ahead of him in his development. Those are grown men. I mean, he's used to fighting grown men, Zayas, but these, is he ready for that right there? So it's interesting. He's in a spot where the WBO is always going to fast track Top Rank guys. They're very much aligned. Top Rank and WBO pretty much work together. So with him being ranked third, I mean, he's not going to have much time, and he's a seasoned 22-year-old. Got that win over Teixeira, which I like. Were you going to say something?
Good win. No, I was agreeing with you. Yep.
Yeah, the win over Teixeira was very nice. Went the distance. Teixeira is just a freaking vet. And now he's got Damian Sosa, who you've called a few fights of over on Pro Box.
Damian's tough, man. He's big for the weight class. He's a little slow-footed, but he's smooth, and he understands the ring very well. He's got a good boxing IQ. I was really surprised with some of the tricky, savvy things that he was doing in the ring when I saw him fight on Pro Box. And he upset a prospect on Pro Box. He fought one of the Valle brothers, the big one, Marquise.
That's why he's
Marquise
here.
Valle, and that's exactly. And I remember I spoke to his team afterwards because I went up to them. Whenever I see guys that are like they surprise me, I like to go and speak to them. I spoke to the team. I said, "Hey, man, your guy can fight." Like that was very impressive. And he's like, "I think we're going for Xander Zayas next." And I was like, "Wow." I'm like, "All right, we'll see." I mean, in my head, I'm like, "Oh, we'll see if that happens." Sure enough, it's happened. And then I saw his coach this past weekend in Vegas, and he's like, "I told you. Remember, I told you we were going to get the Xander fight." I'm like, "Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
Nice.
We got it." I'm like, "You guys in shape?" He goes, "Yep." That's another thing. His conditioning was very, very good. So I think this is actually a really good test for Xander. He's fighting a solid guy, a guy who's a good size for the weight class. He's young too. He's 27, so he's still in that prime age of being like, I'm here to win. I'm not here to look good against you and move on to the next fight. I'm here to win. So I think this is maybe a tougher fight than people are expecting.
Yeah, Teixeira was obviously at the end of the rope, 33. Fortea,
he's an old 33 too.
33. Roberto Valenzuela, he's 25. But Sosa seems sturdy. He seems like a good test. Like he seems like a top ranked type of fight. It's awesome to hear too at the lower levels too. What we hear about is the big time negotiations, right? Like Canelo Berlanga and who's Tank going to fight next and who's turning down what. It's awesome to see like a guy like Damian Sosa get an upset win on Pro Box. His team, like, we're looking for Zayas, and then get it. And then that's awesome. They're going to be fighting on ESPN. That's like what makes the sport go round and round. So that is that 154. I like Zayas a lot. I'm very curious what the movement is with him, but I'm also not too worried because he has a good team and he's with Top Rank and they know how to move fighters. Bruce Carrtington is a similar case to Xander Zayas, except he's 27 years old. Which was shocking. Last time we talked about his fight, thought he was 21. He has the energy of a 21-year-old, but he's 27, and he's fighting Sulama Sagawa, who is a veteran of the sport. Now, Carrtington is ranked number 1 by the WBA, number 2 by the WBO and WBC. The IBF even has him in the top 10. It's very rare to see a fighter in all the top 10 and all those things. But point being, Carrtington this guy's on the precipice of a title shot. Like I would guess he would stick with the WBO, where Rebesi Ramirez and Rafael Espinosa are above him. Espinosa's the champ. He's fighting Ramirez in the rematch. That's an easy, Carrtington could fight the winner. But Bruce Carrtington is in go mode, and he should be, Chris, because he's 27.
Yeah, no, and he's in go mode in every way. And he is, you young fighters at home, if there's a way to fast track your career, as long as you have the skill set to back it up, because he's a long amateur background and grew up in the New York gyms. So obviously, he's got the skill sets there. But a way to fast track your career is to follow the playbook of Bruce Carrtington. This kid is at every single fight. It doesn't matter if there's people in his weight class or not. He's just there. He's ever present. He's omnipresent, so to speak. And he shows up everywhere. He's on social media. He's doing funny videos. He's calling people out. He's doing podcasts. He's at fights. You're just seeing him everywhere. He's just so pervasive in the boxing culture. Yeah. Great kid, which always helps. But also, he's been performing. They step him up. He knocks guy. He's starting to turn into a puncher all of a sudden. So
3 straight stoppages, Chris.
If there's I always say there's a million ways to skin a cat. There's a million ways to become a world champion. The way that Bruce Carrtington is moving, I really, really like it. I think a lot of younger fighters should study his movements and because listen, he's fast track. What has he got? 12 fights. This is 13th, I think.
Yeah,
that's wild. He's on the precipice of a world title fight. So yeah, more power to you, Brucey. Shoo.
And he's a New Yorker. I like that they're putting Zayas and Carrtington together. The Top Rank masterclass is, they're just putting. They can be fighting on the same cards for the next 10 years if it all works out properly. Zayas is 12-0. Excuse me. Carrtington is 12-0 with 8 knockouts. Another thing too, Chris, like you bring up all the interviews he does, all of this, that, and the other. He's not afraid to mention Inoue's name. Like he knows that if
respectfully,
moves,
but yeah,
right. If Inoue moves up to featherweight, I'm gonna have to plant that seed. I'm gonna have to get the public thinking about it. I'm not gonna get that fight tomorrow. I'm not gonna get that fight even next year. But I'm gonna plant that seed, and I'm gonna talk about him right in a respective way. Like we saw, I think Carrtington got the knockout. Inoue was there, gave him like a thumbs up type of thing. It's not disrespectful yet, at least. But Carrtington's smart. Like he knows he's not afraid to say, like, I know what the cash cow is. So if I do my thing here at 126 and I become a champ in one of these divisions, one of these organizations, Inoue is going to be there, and I'm gonna it's there. So I do like that he brings up Inoue's name in a respectful way, not like how some of these other fighters do it.
Well, it keeps you in the news minute. Anything attached to Inoue's name, and we see that on our channel. Whenever anything Inoue gets numbers. People are very, very in tuned with anything around Inoue. So putting your name in the likes of him is again another brilliant marketing strategy for self-promotion by Bruce Carrtington.
Yes, so that is the undercard. Michaela Mayer, Sandy Ryan, main event. Michaela Mayer at 147 pounds. It's hard to believe that she once fought at 135 when she fought Alicia Baumgartner, who's also fighting this weekend on something called Brinks TV. Alicia Baumgartner versus Delphine Persoon. For Baumgartner, her first fight back since the allegations, since PEDs. I think she technically beat the case, but you can use your eyes. I mean, she looks like a totally different person. I'm not going to say anything much more there. I don't want to get a cease and desist letter coming my way. She looks different. That's all I'll say. And she's staying at 135, fighting Delphine Persoon, who I swear a few years ago almost beat Katie Taylor.
Yep. The first fight, I think it was. First fight was real tough, right? Then they fought twice, I think, right? I think they fought twice. But the first fight was
but she's older now. I mean,
yeah, she's fought everybody. She's been a world champion, but definitely long in the tooth.
I will say this though: women's boxing 2022 was carrying the sport because the men couldn't make the fights. We didn't have Turkey throwing around money. We didn't have anyone waking up. So Michaela Mayer fought Alicia Baumgartner, and it was an awesome fight. It captivated the boxing world. Shields versus who's the girl? Why am I forgetting her? Overseas, Savannah Marshall was a huge fight.
Yep.
Taylor versus Serrano was 2022. All those fights happened in 2022, and it's not been the same since.
There was no heavyweights to speak of back then. The heavyweights are not fighting. None of the heavyweight fights are happening, and a lot of the major matchups that we were like so ready for. Remember, that was the year where we were like, we're here. We got Crawford Spence, and then it got kicked off to like another 8, 9, 10 months. So like, yeah, we were getting let down left and right, but the women were picking up the slack.
So with Baumgartner back, Michaela Mayer looking to cement herself at 147. Daniel Dubois' sister is really good. And then you have Caroline Dubois. She's good.
Oh, actually, I think I've seen her. I've seen her. Yes.
And then you got Taylor and Serrano fighting November 15th on the Tyson Paul card. But even like with them, like Serrano will tell you herself, like I only have X amount of fights left. Same thing with Katie Taylor. Like they're up there in age. I'm a little worried about women's boxing, to be honest, because we're just not getting the big time fights that we were a few years ago. We're also just not seeing them on these Saudi cards. I know Sky Nicholson's fighting October 12th. I think she's one of the first women's fights to happen in Saudi Arabia, or one of the first, or a title fight or something like that. But there's not many women's. There was 0 women's fights on the Wembley card, and that's like one unfortunate aspect of it. But Michaela Mayer, Sandy Ryan. Michaela Mayer is only a plus 100 favorite. Excuse me, underdog. Sandy Ryan is the favorite, minus 125.
Interesting.
So it's a pretty cclose fight. It's a pick'em fight. It's the main event. There's a lot of bad blood. Coaches involved.
Press conference was fun.
Mayer at 147. She's a big girl. I can't believe she fought at 135. Well, so we'll see. Maybe Baumgartner or Mayer can drum up something and get a rematch there. But that's over at MSG this Friday, I believe. Yeah, it's a Friday night fights. some good ones. Zayas, Carrtington, Mayer, ESPN, Top Rank, that whole machine. Love that. What do you got going on this weekend?
I got my rents in town for Mama Algieri's birthday.
Wow.
So keeping them.
How's the
keeping
weather?
them
I know there's
busy.
a hurricane coming, bearing its head on Florida. Not near you?
It's sensationalized. We on this side, it's gonna hit Tampa. It's gonna hit like the Louisiana Panhandle area. I'm safe here in Boca. We got
you're good.
We're protected over
Chris
here.
Algieri checked in as safe on Facebook. You remember that? You can do that?
Yes.
You're good, bro. Do people even care about hurricanes over there?
No, we enjoy them. We get excited. We go and we buy a bunch of booze and wait for to be locked in the house for a while.
Yeah. So that's what's going on in the Algieri
That's
house.
Florida. That's Chris Algieri, the Florida man.
There he is, Florida man, full-fledged Florida man. I don't know what I'll be doing this weekend. I probably won't be at the fights on Friday, but I will be watching. But we will be back next week with another episode of Inside Boxing Live. Keep your hands up at all times. Protect yourselves at all times. Stay out of those DMs. Good night.